Get your free copy of the complete tutorial at www.teachucomp.com/free.
In QuickBooks, you can use the EasyStep interview to quickly and easily create your company file. You complete the EasyStep interview by entering information into the different screens shown within the interview. Once you have filled in the information in a screen, you can click the Next button to proceed to the next screen. Once you have answered all of the questions, you can click the Finish button to create your company file and start using QuickBooks. If questions are posed that you must answer and you're unsure as to how to correctly enter your answer, don't worry. You can usually go back and change your answers later. In most screens, you can simply click the Back button to return to a previous screen and change your answers. Also, if necessary, you can click the Leave button to exit the EasyStep interview. However, if you leave the EasyStep interview prior to saving your company file, then your data entry will be lost. A message box will inform you if this is the case before you exit, so don't worry. If you are new to QuickBooks, it is recommended that you set up a company file that is not your company file, but is similar in nature, a dummy company if you will. That way you can practice creating transactions that you would be likely to enter into your own company file without placing your own real company file's data in jeopardy. It is possible to create as many company files in QuickBooks as you would like. Also, if you set up a fake company file, it can be easier to train others in your company in the basic bookkeeping involved with the company without risking the integrity of your actual company data. Before you begin entering data in the EasyStep interview, you will need some basic information. First, and most importantly, you will need to select a start date for your QuickBooks company file. The start date is the date as of which you will enter all of the balances of the accounts used in your company file. Because of this, you may want to pick a date that isn't too far in the past, since you will have to record each transaction that has occurred from the start date through the current date to create a company file that is financially accurate and also able to be used for the daily data entry. Many people will choose to use the last day of their last financial period, such as a quarter, a month, etc., as their start date. Remember that you will have to enter in all of the transactions that have occurred from the start date through the current date, or at least accurate journal entries representing the transaction values, to use the company file and have accurate balances. So don't go too far into the past if you don't want to spend hours performing data entry. You will also need to know the account balances of your checking, savings, and any other accounts used by your company as of your start date, and this can often be found on a balance sheet created as of the start date. If that isn't available, bank statements as of the start date or just prior to the start date can also be used. You will also need to have a Federal Employer Identification Number, or FEIN, or your Social Security number found on your company's tax returns. Once you have this information available, you can start the EasyStep interview. To create a company file in QuickBooks, you can begin by selecting File from the menu bar and choosing the New Company command from the drop-down menu. You can also start it by clicking the Create a New Company button in the No Company Open dialog box that appears in QuickBooks when there's no company file opened. That will bring up the EasyStep interview as well. In the first screen of the EasyStep interview, you can see the options that you have for creating a company file at the right side of the screen. At the left side of the screen is the interview progress meter. As you complete the screens in the EasyStep interview, your overall progress is reflected in this meter. To begin the EasyStep interview, click the Start Interview button at the right side of the screen. In the first screen labeled Enter Your Company Information, you enter information about your company. Required fields are noted by a red asterisk to the left of the field name. You begin by entering the name of your company into the company name field. You can then move to the next field by simply pressing the Tab key on your keyboard or by clicking into the next field with your mouse. The next field is the legal name field. This is most often the same thing as your company name field, but can be different for DBA businesses. Note that if you have a question about this field, you can click the Explain hyperlink to show an associated help file explaining this field's purpose in a new window. You can read this and close it when you are finished. This type of assistance is everywhere in the EasyStep interview and is throughout the QuickBooks application generally. Note that you can click the Get Answers hyperlink in the upper right corner of any screen within the EasyStep interview to open an associated help file regarding the content that is entered into the particular screen. Once again, you can read this information and then close it when you are finished. It is important to note that help like this is almost always available for any screen in QuickBooks and interweaved throughout the program. This is just another great aspect of using this program. Next, you enter either your FEIN or Social Security number as appropriate into the Tax ID field. You then enter your complete street address into the street address field set. Then enter your city into the city field. Then select the abbreviation for your state from the state drop-down menu. Then enter your zip code into the zip field. You can then select your country from the country drop-down menu if necessary. You can then enter your phone number and fax number if desired into the phone and fax fields using the formatting which you would like to have displayed on your forms within QuickBooks, like your invoices, for example. You can then enter a default email address for the company into the email address field. You can also enter the website address of your company into the website field if desired. Once you have finished entering your data into this screen, you can click the Next button to continue. In the next screen, titled Set Up Your Administrator Password, you can create a password for the administrator account of your company file. The administrator account has access to all of your company's financial information. This is an optional step, and you can create users and assign access privileges at any time. However, if you wish to create a password for the administrator account, you can enter it into both the administrator password and retype password fields. If you do this, make sure you know what this password is. Also note that passwords you create are case sensitive. When you are ready, click the Next button to continue. In the next screen, called Create Your Company File, you create the actual QuickBooks company file that you will use. This is when you decide what to name the company file and where you will save it. Note this information as you will most likely need it later. When you are ready to save the company file, you can click the Next button to continue. This will launch the File Name for New Company dialog box. This is a standard Windows Save As dialog box, so you use the Save In drop-down to select the folder into which you want to save the company file. QuickBooks Pro will default to saving its company files to C Program Files, Intuit, QuickBooks Pro, but you can select a different folder if desired. Once you have selected where you want to save the company file, you can then enter the name which you want to give to the company file into the File Name field. This defaults to the name of the company, but you can change it if you need to. Once you know where you will save the file and what you will name it, click the Save button to save the company file and return to the EasyStep interview. The next screen you will see in the EasyStep interview is the Customizing QuickBooks for Your Business screen. This screen informs you that the next several screens will customize your QuickBooks company file by asking you questions about your company, your customers, and how you pay your bills. Note that at this point or after, you can click the Leave button in the lower left corner of the EasyStep interview screen to save your progress and return later to complete the EasyStep interview. Once you are ready to continue, click the Next button. In the next screen, titled Select Your Industry, you select the type of company for which you are creating a company file from the list of choices shown in the list. The choice you make here will affect what features are enabled and what accounts are placed into your chart of accounts by default. You can always customize these features later, but selecting an industry from the list will typically reduce the amount of customization required. If your specific industry isn't listed, then you can either select the closest industry listed or select the other None choice from the list of choices. An important point to note is that the answer that you make here will change what questions the EasyStep interview will pose to you as you continue. So the questions posed to an individual who selects retail will be different from an individual who selects church. For example, setting up sales tax would be a part of the EasyStep interview for the retail selection, but not for the church selection. Once you have made your selection, then click the Next button to continue. For the purpose of showing the EasyStep interview, we have made the retail selection. Just remember that the screen shown here may no longer reflect the questions that will specifically be asked of you when creating your company file if you made a different industry selection. Next, for the retail selection, the EasyStep interview shows a screen called What Do You Sell? The choices available here are services only, products only, or both services and products. The answer made here determines whether or not you need to set up inventory during the EasyStep interview. So for this example, let's say that we sell both services and products. In that case, you would select that option button and then click the Next button to continue. The next screen then asks, how will you enter your sales in QuickBooks? The choices available here are to record each sale individually, record only a summary of your daily or weekly sales, or use QuickBooks Point of Sale. Note that QuickBooks Point of Sale is a package used to scan and track inventory for retail stores, but that it is sold separately. The option to record daily or weekly transactions is often useful for stores which only want to enter a summary of sales made from a separate cash register into QuickBooks. The option to record each sale individually is useful for companies who wish to keep detailed transaction information in QuickBooks. This also allows you to print invoices and sales receipts for customers if needed. For the purpose of this example, we will select to record each sale individually. Once again, when finished with the screen, you can click the Next button to continue. The next screen asks, do you sell products online? The answer made here will decide whether or not QuickBooks will show additional information to you regarding additional online sales services that are available. For the purpose of this example, we will select the I currently sell online option and then click the Next button to continue. The next screen asks, do you charge sales tax? The options are yes and no. Most retail businesses collect at least one sales tax, so we will answer yes for this example. This will allow us to set up sales tax in QuickBooks. Once again, click the Next button once you've completed a screen and wish to continue. The next screen asks, do you want to create estimates in QuickBooks? Often these items are referred to as bids, proposals, or quotes in various industries. These are all called estimates in QuickBooks. For our example, we will select to answer yes. This enables the estimates feature in QuickBooks, and then we'll click Next to continue. The next screen is titled Using Sales Receipts in QuickBooks. This screen asks if we will need the ability to print sales receipts for customers who pay in full at the time of sale. To enable printing of sales receipts, we will select Yes in this example. Then we will click the Next button to continue. The next screen, titled Using Statements in QuickBooks, asks if we wish to use billing statements to list charges accumulated over a period of time. This allows you to enter charges to a customer's accounts receivable without creating an invoice. You can then bill them for these charges in a billing statement. To enable this feature for this example, we will select Yes, and then we will click the Next button to continue. The next screen, titled Using Progress Invoicing, asks if we will be using partial billing for larger projects. Once again, you can answer yes or no depending on your type of business. For this example, we will select Yes and then click the Next button to continue. The next screen, titled Managing Bills You Owe, asks if you want to enable an accounts payable account to keep track of the bills that you owe. Most companies wish to track this information and would answer yes. We will select yes in our example and then we'll click the Next button to continue. The next screen, titled Tracking Inventory in QuickBooks, asks if we would need to create items in QuickBooks to account for items which are purchased from a vendor and resold to customers. If the item is not an item bought from a vendor and resold to a customer, then it may be easier to set it up as a non-inventory item in QuickBooks instead. When enabling inventory, QuickBooks will calculate the value of the inventory using the average costing method. You cannot use FIFO or LIFO costing methods in QuickBooks. However, for any items created as inventory items in QuickBooks, QuickBooks will calculate the average cost of inventory and keep count of how many are available. For this example, let's answer yes, and then click the Next button to continue. The next screen asks, do you accept credit cards? For this example, we will answer, I accept credit cards and debit cards, and then click the Next button to continue. The next screen, titled Tracking Time in QuickBooks, asks if you wish to record the time worked by employees, owners, or subcontractors who are set up as vendors. The recorded time can then be used in various ways shown in this screen, such as paying employees. For this example, we will answer yes, and then click the Next button to continue. The next screen asks, do you have employees? You can select either the yes or no option as appropriate. If you select the yes option, then check the correct checkbox or checkboxes to indicate what type of employees you have. For this example, we will select yes and also check that we have W-2 employees and the We Have 1099 Contractors checkboxes. Then we will click the Next button to continue. The next screen, titled Using Accounts in QuickBooks, allows you to read about the process of creating the chart of accounts used by your company file. This is when you will need your start date for your company file and the balances in your company's accounts as of the start date. When you have finished reading this information, click the Next button to continue. The next screen, titled Enter Your Start Date, will allow you to enter the start date of your company file into the Start Date field available. You can either type it into the box or select the desired date from the Calendar drop-down at the right end of the field. Once you have entered your start date, you can then click the Next button to continue. The next screen, titled Add Your Bank Account, wants you to add your bank accounts to QuickBooks. These would include any accounts opened as of your start date that had a balance in them as of your start date. Typically, this includes checking, savings, and money market accounts. For example, let's assume that we wanted to create a checking account. First, we would have to answer yes to the question posed in this screen, and then click the Next button to continue. That would open the Tell Us About Your Account screen. In this account screen, you would enter a name for the account into the Bank Account Name field. You can then optionally enter the bank account number into the Bank Account Number field. You then select whether or not the account was opened as of your start date. To enter an opening balance for the account, you would select the Before option and then click the Next button to continue. The next screen, titled Enter Your Bank Statement Information, will then let you enter the ending date of the most immediate bank statement that was issued before the start date in the Statement Ending Date field. You can then enter the ending balance shown on the bank statement into the Statement Ending Balance field. You can then click the Next button to continue. The next screen, titled Review Your Bank Accounts, lets you review the bank accounts which you have created in QuickBooks. You can then select whether or not you want to add more accounts. If you select yes and then click the Next button to continue, QuickBooks will repeat the screens that ask you about setting up the next account. Eventually, when you have finished adding all of the necessary bank accounts, you can answer no to the Do you want to add another bank account question. So for this example, let's assume that we have set up all the bank accounts needed. In that case, you can select No and then click the Next button to continue. The next screen, titled Review Expense Accounts, will allow you to view the default expense accounts created for your company based on your industry selection. The question shown asks, do you want to use these expense accounts? Unless you want to create each and every expense account used by your company, you may find it is easier to select yes and then edit the names of the accounts later. If you select no, you will need to create all of the expense accounts used by your company later. For this example, we will select yes and then click the next button to continue. The next screen, titled Review Income Accounts, will allow you to view the default income accounts created for your company based, once again, on your industry selection. The question shown asks, do you want to use these income accounts? And unless you want to create each and every income account used by your company, you may find it is easier to select yes and then later edit the names of the accounts used. If you select no, you will need to create all of the income accounts used in your company later. For this example, we will select yes and then click the next button to continue. When you've finished answering all of the questions in the EasyStep interview, you'll see the final congratulations screen. When you're finished, just click the Finish button to finish customizing and creating your company file. This will open the QuickBooks Learning Center, where you can watch some sample lessons on using QuickBooks and setting up basic items. When you're finished, click the Begin Using QuickBooks button to close the QuickBooks Learning Center and return to your company file.
Like what you see? Pick up your free copy of the complete tutorial at www.teachucomp.com/free.